A lot of new investors, they hesitate to buy their first property. You have raised a lot of money for your deals, and I know that didn't happen overnight. So what are the strategies that help you build that trust and credibility with investors?
I think the biggest mistake is thinking that you're asking people for money. I tell you, when you're doing your goals, like it's great to learn about goals and how to do them. But a lot of people who teach that, they tell you the first thing is to ask yourself, why do you want to achieve all of that?
Talk about for someone who's new, what is the biggest advice you can give them when they're just starting from like single family to now multifamily? Welcome to another episode of From Dream to Legacy, the podcast where we explore inspiring stories, strategies, and insights of those who dare to dream big and are building lasting legacies. I'm your host, Nahieli Davis. And in each episode, we'll uncover the transformative power of resilience, ambition, and self-discovery to inspire you to take action and create a life of purpose. I am so excited to be here today with a very powerful woman, Linda Holtz. Linda has made an incredible journey from managing properties to raising millions of dollars for commercial real estate deals. Linda, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate being here today.
Well, moving from one industry to another is never easy, but your story is especially inspiring because you also made a life transition from moving to France to the US, and that's a huge, big leap in itself. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced early on, and how did that experience shape your approach to real estate?
Yes, oh my gosh, so very early on, like literally as soon as I decided to move to the US, so I was already facing some issues. So to backtrack a little bit, and I'll try not to go down a rabbit hole. But I first moved to the US with my whole school. So it was part of my degree at the time. I had just finished my first year of master's degree. And during the summer, before coming back for the second year, we had to come study in New York City. So it was me and all my friends. And I really liked it. I decided to stay. Well, I decided that if I could find a job, I would stay. Because our second year of school, we were still going to be students, but we had to do an internship. So I was like, if I can find my internship in New York City, I'll come back for at least a year. And if I don't find one, then it's not meant to be. I ended up finding a job. So I got very excited and thinking like, oh, this is it. This is happening. But then I had to go back home to do my paperwork, I guess. Like if you're an immigrant, you know that it's not that easy. You don't just decide to stay.
That's great.
And so that's where my first challenge happened, is that by the time I got home and decided to come back, it was September. And without going into too much details, I was trying to get a student visa that there's quotas every year on like how many people can have one. And because it was September, we were like towards the end of the year. So for me, it was like very close to the quota. So right off the bat, I had the job ready and I had no clue if I was even going to be able to come back. Now, of course, I'm here, so it worked out well. But that was definitely one of those very first challenges. Like I will always remember my mom telling me the way she said it was, and like she loves me, right? But the way she said it was, at this point you need to go because you've been wanting to go so bad and like jumping through all these hoops that you just have to go. Like there's no other way around it. And it worked out. I'm here now. Well, now, so I ended up coming back thinking it was a year, and now it's been 13 years. So it definitely worked out.
You are determined, girl. That's amazing. I mean, between your mom, like women power, you made it happen.
Yes,
Absolutely. You fighting your nails, like, should I make? Am I gonna make it?
And the funny thing is, so before I had gone to New York for the summer, I had found a job back home to do my internship. So I had to let that go when I decided to come back to New York. So all of a sudden it was like, if this doesn't work, let go of my other option that I already had. So yeah, I had to definitely make it happen. And to answer your question about how does that translate to real estate, eventually, you know, little by little, I continued my journey. I became a property manager. And between being a property manager and going through this experience, it really taught me that like the power of pivoting and the power of when you're in real estate or any kind of industry similar, where it's like it's related to a market or things that, you know, sometimes things just happen. It's it almost doesn't matter what happens. What matters is how you react to it and how you adapt to it. And I definitely got that from that very first experience early on, where it was like, you could not tell me no. I was going to make it happen anyway.
I'm telling you, it's that determination and that commitment, right? It's what makes things happen. I love it. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so you started in property management before stepping into investing, and you were, I guess, managing properties give you a very unique and specific perspective. So, what were some key lessons that experience has helped you as an investor?
Yes. So definitely when it comes to commercial real estate, because I've always taken care of entire buildings at a time, right?
Mhm.
The first thing that it taught me was kind of related to the pivoting part, where it's like you never know what could happen. I mean, I vividly remember asking one of my old boss one time, how do you organize your day? And his response was, you put out the biggest fire first.
Smart.
I used to think that's crazy to like live in this environment. But yeah, property management is very much like that, where it's like the quote that I love the most is every year is the same, but every day is different.
Hmm.
And so I've always felt like real estate was very much like that, where it's you don't get bored because every day something new could happen, every week something new could happen. But then there's always the same things that keep on occurring all the time. Like for example, rent is always due on the first, and I don't know, like you always want to do certain maintenance once a year, or you inspect the pool every so often. And so it's all those things where it's like those things are like clockwork. But on a day to day, week to week, you never know what could happen.
So you made the leap from property management to then multifamily. So at some point, you decided that, okay, I'm going to move from residential to commercial real estate. And that's a huge step. Let's be honest. It's a very, very scary step for most people. What was the moment that you realized that this was the right move?
Oh, that's a great question. So to backtrack a little bit, so I was a property manager for a long time, decided to start investing. My very first property was a multifamily, but it was a triplex. Very much felt like I was a small time landlord. Like my husband and I lived in one unit and we rented out the other two and we self-managed that whole property. So like anything that had to do with maintenance or repairs or finding tenants, that was all on us. And so the switch kind of came from realizing that, hey, we really like doing this. We know that we want to do it for a while. We kind of realized that real estate was our way to financial freedom.
Mm.
But then it was like, but I don't want to be the person who gets the call at 3 a.m. forever. I don't want to not be able to go on vacation because we can never go too far in case there's an emergency. And so that was the switch that happened where we realized if we continue to do one house at a time or one duplex at a time or one triplex at a time, it's really going to take us much longer than what we want. And I know certain people are able to do it in 2, 3, 4 years. Everybody's situation is different depending on like, how much income you have, how much time you have, how creative you are with how you acquire those properties. But for me, based on our situation and how we were working, I was like, this is going to take us 10 to 15, maybe 20 years to feel free. And for me, coming from another country, I just didn't want to wait that long. I was like, I cannot only go home 2 weeks at a time for Christmas every year and never be able to travel the rest of the time, never be able to see my family and friends other than this one time a year, just because it's taking too long to buy properties. I was a little impatient. So that's where the switch happened.
Because it's true, a lot of new investors, they hesitate to buy their first property. And
Yeah.
there's always that fear of making a mistake. I made a lot of mistakes when I bought my first one. So what would be a good advice, or besides being impatient, that would you give to someone who's ready to take that first step, but they feel they're unsure?
I hope it doesn't disappoint, but to me, it's like, just do it. That's the best advice I can give. One thing that I'm very grateful for, that might sound a little counterintuitive, is that if I knew then what I knew now, I'm not sure that I would have jumped. But you cannot let analysis paralysis stop you. You have to take a leap of faith. You have to just go for it. For me, it almost helped me out that, yes, I knew a lot about property management because that was my day job. But in the grand scheme of things, I really didn't know that much about investing. So I made all those mistakes. Like I bought a house that was from the 20s and kind of falling apart. And then I found renters who I like to joke that they catfished me because somebody signed a lease and then it was another person who moved in.
Oh my gosh, that actually happened to you. I want
Actually
to hear
happened.
more. Please share with us.
So my husband, and of course I won't say names, right? But my husband and I joke that it was the mom who signed the lease. And I did all my research on her, like called her job, called her previous landlords. Like there was no way I could have done anything different. But then it was her son who moved in with his girlfriend, and there were three young children, like three toddlers, not maybe not toddlers, but like from I don't know 3 to 8 years old or something like that type of age. So we went from signing a lease with a grown woman who was going to move in with I think a teenage girl to all of a sudden having 5 people and like young kids and did not look employed, like would spend all day every day at the house. And it was definitely one of those situations where we did everything we could. The only thing that we could have done differently is just say no to her, but she looked perfect on paper, so why would we have done that? And so we always joke that they probably lived with her and they were so annoying that she was willing to put her name on the list to get them someone.
Just go.
Obviously we don't.
I'll give you my credit. I'll give you like everything. Just take it and go.
Just go. And of course we don't know, but that's what we always say is like, because sometimes you also have to think we live there. We live not with them, but right above. So yes, they were not the best tenants, but they were not even the best neighbors.
Oh my goodness.
And so yeah, it's definitely those things where I'm like, oh boy, if I had even known that this was possible, I don't know that I would have taken the jump. But sometimes you just have to go for it. You just have to hope for the best and tell yourself, what I don't know, I'll figure out along the way. And usually if you have that type of mentality, it'll work out.
Yeah, that's true. But I always say, do the best you can in doing your due diligence, and you did it right.
Yes.
So I mean, like you said, you tried everything, even calling her job. I mean, that's brilliant, and that's what you should do. But you still sometimes get surprises that are out of your control, and you just have to pivot and deal with them and find a solution. Because at the end, that's what we do, right? We're problem solvers, and we have to think and act and just deal with the moment to moment issues that arise. So, well, you manage that really, really well. So I know
Thank
that,
you.
of course, you're raising capital right now for your deals, but I want to talk a little bit about because raising capital is taking an even further step, right? You basically graduated to even something that it's a little harder.
Yeah.
I'm a capital raiser as well. So I want to talk a little bit about how, from your experience, the biggest mistakes people can make while raising capital for your deals, or just in general for your deal or for someone else.
To me, within our industry, I think the biggest mistake, and bear with me because I'm still going through it myself, I think the biggest mistake is thinking that you're asking people for money. I think there's a very important mindset shift that has to happen where it's like, no, you're sharing an opportunity. Now, obviously, you want to have systems in place. You want to know how to find people, where to find people, how to follow up with them, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, the investment is the prize, right? Like you're just guiding them to it. If they don't want it, they don't want it. Your role is not to convince. Your role is not to sell. At least in my opinion, the most important thing is to realize and then continue to remind yourself all the time, all I'm doing is educating and sharing. And as long as I do that right, the right people will come along.
Yeah, that is absolutely 100% true for me as well. So you have raised a lot of money for your deals, and I know that didn't happen overnight. So what are the strategies that help you build that trust and credibility with investors? Because as you know, raising capital can be very challenging, but it's all about trust and credibility, right? So what are those things for you? How did you build that for your investors?
Yes. So for me, I mean, I like that question because I think that everybody has to ask themselves what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are too, by the way, and then be yourself. I mean, I know it sounds cliche, right? Like it sounds like the thing that you tell high schoolers at the end of the feel-good movie, right? But that's really what the bottom line is just be authentic. Just, like for me, I leaned in a lot on the fact that I know real estate. I know how to take care of properties. I have invested in my own deals before. Like in the grand scheme of things, I bought my very first investment property in 2020. Now it's March 2025. So the multifamily side I haven't done as long, but I've been investing for years. I've been a property manager for a whole decade now. And so I very much leaned in on this in terms of like the skills and professional expertise, I guess. And then you also have to lean in on who you are as a person. Like I know with my husband, we founded the company M2RE. And our core values are family, loyalty, and honesty. And so share that with people, right? Like share who you are, share your story, share your struggles, your wins. And I think people are going to relate to that. Like you and I, for example, we both came from other countries. We both overcame so much to arrive here and to be where we are today. And I think that sometimes it's just as simple as telling people, hey, this is what I've gone through. And so that makes me relate to you because of XYZ. And do you want to come on this journey with me or not? It's that simple. It's not easy, but it's that simple.
I think what you say is beautiful, and I couldn't agree more. I think that just being yourself, and like we were just talking a little bit before about our accent, and just, trying to, like, yes, we say things that are maybe said wrong or pronounced wrong, and at the end, it's just who we are, and you take that, but
Yes.
you have to know that is nothing to do with how you think or what beliefs. So you just got to be confident and be yourself, even with mistakes, with experience or lack of experience. You just have to disclose that, right? And just be honest, transparent. And that's one of my core values as well. Transparency is huge. Okay.
Absolutely.
So there's this very common obstacle that people think when they're trying to raise money for their deals. And it is, I don't know any potential investor. So the truth is that investors are often closer than we think. It's your friends and family, or it's, your network. How did you specifically build your network without coming from a high net worth background?
Yes. And so for me, like that was definitely a concern that I had getting started, because not only my background, like back home is like, I don't really know any millionaires like that. But even the people that I know who might be investors that I grew up with, they're in a totally different country. So that definitely added a layer of, oh, wow. So I don't necessarily know people with very, very high net worth, but even the ones who have, let's say, upper class income, they're not here. So it goes back to kind of being confident and getting out there, getting out of your comfort zone. When I first started, I went to a lot of networking events, both in person and virtually, because I knew like I'm going to follow up with all my friends and family and share with them what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, I also have to go out and create my own network in what I'm doing. It was scary at first because like you were saying, it's like, that you're going to go and you're going to be the girl who is always happy and smiling. And it's like, how do you create credibility from that? How do you go past being the person who, I'm sorry to say, just a girl? Because we live kind of in a society, and especially in real estate, where people are going to judge you right off the bat from that. Or coming from the fact that I have an accent, or coming from the fact that I'm not necessarily from here. And it's all those things where I had to get over myself and be like, I'm just here to learn and eventually share what I've learned. And you go out there and, you just talk to as many people as you can, basically.
So yes, exactly. And that goes back to what you were saying initially about being confident and just being yourself and offering an opportunity, not necessarily raising money. I love that. And there's so many strategies, but I know that one that a lot of people use is oversubscribing as an essential strategy. Can you break down what that means and why is it important?
Yes. I mean, so I feel like the best way to explain it for me, and hopefully for the audience, is comparing it to how airlines will sell more tickets to an airplane, right?
I love that.
Because they know that there's always, like, I don't know what the number is, but 5, 10, 20% of people who are going to miss it for one way or another. In capital raising is the same thing. They always tell you when you have soft commitment, so like people who say I want to invest that much, but you don't have a deal yet, like that's the best time to raise capital, is when you don't have a deal, there's no pressure. But then that means that whoever you talk to and people are saying like, hey, I'm committed to doing this when you have a deal. Well, if you have a deal a month, 2 months, 3 months later, their life might have changed, right? So you want to make sure that you oversubscribe so that when the deal does come, you have enough for that specific deal and you're not relying on Like you don't have just enough to the T, and you're relying on everybody to come through and prepared, because their life might be different. They might have invested in something else in the meantime. They might have a change in their personal situation or job or whatnot, and all of a sudden that money is not there. So yeah, oversubscribing is just selling more tickets than you have room, I guess.
I've never heard it explained that way, and I really like that actually. And we all know that it's you want to start raising 6 months before you have a deal. But yeah, oversubscribing seems like it's because you do have those 6 months. You have to constantly be doing that. So I love that. I want to touch a little back to what you were saying about confidence. So let's talk a little bit about mindset and growth. So asking people to invest in your deals takes a lot of confidence. And how did you build that confidence, and what mental and strategic preparation helps you to present opportunities with clarity and conviction? Because it really takes that convincing and that excitement and that passion to offer that opportunity. So tell us about your secrets.
Yeah, for sure. And I love how you say that passion, because I think it's very important to love what you're doing, right? Like I'm a big proponent of, not every investment is meant for everybody. Like, don't do something that's going to keep you up at night, right? Like, don't do shady things that may mess with your own integrity. Like do things that you're going to be excited about, right? Like, do things that are going to have an impact on the community. Do things that you feel good sharing at Christmas or whatever. And so I think that the important part is, again, going back to, you're just sharing an opportunity. And it's about knowing how to, first of all, knowing your investors, because it's all about relationship, but then knowing how to connect what their goals are with what the deal's goals or visions are. And if that aligns, then, you get the confidence from that passion of just saying like, hey, I found something that works for you. Like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. Like, I don't know, let's say they want to put their kids through college. Well, this is going to give you like exactly, well, not exactly, you don't want to promise, but this is projected to give you exactly what you need at exactly the right time. And that makes me so excited, because I know it's a goal of yours. And so that passion piece is so important. Now, as far as the confidence, I will say that it's a lot of coaching. Like for me, I did a couple of classes over my time since I've started investing on different things, right? Like sometimes you do classes about capital raising, where it's a little bit more about how to build a CRM, how to reach out to people, what the scripts are, how many people you want to talk to, stuff like that. But for me, I've also done some classes about how to learn how to tell a story. And I've also done some coaching about my own limiting beliefs. And I have a coach in like performance psychology, where it's psychology performance, where it's literally based on going back in time in like previous years and my early years in childhood to learn, okay, who am I as a person? Because I think that at the end of the day, confidence comes from, again, it sounds cliche, but comes from like knowing who you are and loving who you are. And yes, the passion piece is great and it's very important. Like don't do real estate if you cannot stand it, for example. But then also don't be afraid to do the work on yourself, because I've seen a lot of people over the years, especially like before property management, I was in sales, people who only go to a certain ceiling, even in entrepreneurship, people who like get to very high levels, but they could go so much further if only they would face themselves and face their fears and face their limiting beliefs. And until you do that, you just not going to reach your full potential. Once you do that, I think that will naturally give you confidence.
Oh my goodness, I absolutely love that answer, and I can tell that you have worked so much on yourself.
Thank you.
And so let's touch a little bit more on that. So working on yourself, I mean, that is the key. I completely agree. That is the key for everything. And that's why we spent all this money on books, listening to podcasts, mentorships, gurus, and all these other things. But let's go to like a little bit, with the magnifying, what's it called?
Magnifying glass.
Thank you. A magnifying glass. We just talked about this, that we make up words, but yes.
We make up words.
Accent to accent, a magnifying glass. So what are those daily habits and routines that have helped you scale your real estate business? What are those exactly that you apply day to day? Because that's the work that you have been doing on yourself.
So number one, journaling. I have my journal right here. So I love that. So my journal is also a planner. So I definitely have a paper planner. I know it's 2025, but because it's a planner, it forces me every day to like it asks a lot of questions every day. Like, what are your affirmations? What are your goals? Did you it like at first it asks you that in the morning, and then at night it says, okay, what were some of your wins for the day, and what are some things you can work on the next day. So all of these are good habits that everybody should have, but I know for me it's tough to do it if I don't have accountability. So like if I have to write it down, but the paper is not ready, the pen is nowhere to be found, it's much easier to forget. When it's in the form of a journal like that, well, I know that I always have my journal everywhere. Like I literally travel with it everywhere. And when I say my journal, people probably think that I'm a 14-year-old girl. But again, it's like embracing who you are. Like I don't care. That works for me. This is how I work. My success comes from doing that. So I'm not afraid to share that. And then it's up to people how they want to interpret it. That's every day. I also like to have
interrupt you for 1 second because I love that you just mentioned that you journal. As a matter of fact, I just have to share it with all of you. I did write a journal. It's a 7-minute journal for success. And I'll share the link in the at the end of the episode in the comments. So you guys, if you are a believer like Linda and myself, please go and buy that, and it will help tremendously. So anyway.
Oh, I love it. Yes, that's awesome. I mean, yes, please send me the link too. But the other thing that I like to do also is, well, twofold. I like to have a vision board for the year. And I have learned to kind of take a step back and look at further down now, because I've done a yearly vision board for probably close to 7-8 years now. But it was always 1 year. And so this year I actually realized eventually I'm going to have to do one for like 3 years or 5 years, because there's only so much you can do in 1 year. And I realized that it was actually limiting me to always do it for 12 months. Something else that I started doing this year that's kind of related to the vision board is that the same goals that I used to make the vision board, I actually uploaded them to ChatGPT. So this is my AI plug, I guess, because everybody wants to talk about AI nowadays. So I saw that online. I don't remember where, but I uploaded my goals to ChatGPT, and I told ChatGPT, write me like a script in like the day of in the life of me in December 2025. And every morning I recorded myself reading it to myself in my own voice with the excitement and everything. Like alone in my office, I was just getting excited. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And like I wake up and I do this and then I do that. And every morning I listen to it. When I wake up, I listen to it and I visualize myself being in like December 2025, living my best life. And that's what works for me.
That is incredible, because you are reprogramming your brain. You are starting to have that self-belief, because when you have this new idea or a new goal, it's very hard for your subconscious to grasp it, right? So it really takes that repetition. That's why journaling, using your voice, your affirmations are key to attaining your goals. Absolutely.
Yes. And I can even share something that I literally found out about yesterday. So I haven't done it yet, but I saw a video about this girl who was saying, instead of making a vision board with pictures on Canva, you should try and make a movie out of it. So like small videos of the same images probably, and then add music. So I'm going to try that. I'll let you guys know next time if it worked out.
I will try that with you. Let's do it. And I encourage everybody to try it as well, because the more that you repeat, have those repetitions, the more you have those repetitions in your brain, it's where it's really going to start clicking. And then that self-belief is what makes things happen. So
absolutely.
What about, so you mentioned journaling, you mentioned the vision board, you mentioned the video and the images, with the music, make it very interactive, almost like you can touch it and smell it and see it, right? What about a mentorship or a mentor or just a partner, or what other resources have created that much impact in your journey?
Yeah, so I mentioned I have a psychology performance coach. For me, it was very important because I knew that there were things in my head that were stopping me. I knew that I probably, we all have those limiting beliefs, maybe not all, but a lot of people have those limiting beliefs of thinking, I don't know, like I'll never be a billionaire, for example. And it's like, well, why not? So I knew I had those, but by having those, I was like, maybe there's more that I don't realize and I need help getting it out. And now I feel like I'm one of those therapy commercial. But for me, it was very important to have somebody kind of help me realize those and overcome, like unearth them and overcome them. But I also knew that I wanted somebody who understood what I was doing. So I was like, I don't really need to go see a therapist. I mean, no dig to anybody who was a therapist, but for me, I was like, it's not so much that it's keeping me from living, it's more so keeping me from my business reaching its next limit or potential. And because of that, I need help from somebody who understands my business, because otherwise it doesn't really go together. They're not going to know where I'm trying to go. So that's definitely something that I have, like, to this day. I started months ago, I think 5 months ago. And I still continue to see that coach all the time. Like, I had talked to him today, actually. And then I like to do classes. I mean, you and I kind of met on a class that was set in time. I think it was like 8 weeks. I did another one before that was 16 weeks. So I just like it, going back to books and podcasts. I listen to all of that. I'm big on YouTube videos. I'm big on audiobooks. And so I like to go through all of these and kind of learn from other people.
But not everybody has been lucky to have performance coach like you, or has read a lot like you have, or has been to mentorships and courses and things like that. So when someone like a new investor or someone new that wants to start investing, they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. So they're going to be afraid. Especially if they're going to suddenly start finding all these different obstacles, so like such is life, especially in the real estate investment industry. When they hit those roadblocks, what is the one thing that has allowed you to move forward, and just say like, okay, I know that I'm facing this fear. I know that there's this obstacle, but I got to keep going. Can you share something that you've learned from all these courses, books, and coaches that has really hit the spot for you?
For me, it's the power of why. I mean, there's so many books that talk about that. There's so many coaches who tell you when you're doing your goals, like it's great to learn about goals and how to do them. But a lot of people who teach that, they tell you the first thing is to ask yourself, why do you want to achieve all of that? And for me, my why has always been my family. Like, yes, I wanted to come study here. I wanted to come work here. And fast forward all these years, I'm still here. But at the end of the day, everything that I'm doing is because I want to be able to go back and forth to my country whenever I want. I didn't want to rely on one specific job. I didn't want to rely, like, both financially, but also I didn't want to have to ask for permission as to when to go. Like, when I was a property manager, that was most of my career in the US. Property managers can't really go on vacation more than 2 weeks, whether it's for a reason or another, because typically they know their property is the best. So yes, you can have somebody who covers for you, but it's not the same. Like, they're not going to manage the property for you if you decide to go on a 3 week, 1 month or more vacation or retreat or whatever it is that you want to do. And so for me, that always kind of bothered me, because living so far, I've always felt like, well, number one, that means I don't see my family often. But also, number two, that means that this is all I can do is go see my family. I can never, or not never, but not often travel to see other countries or discover different cultures and things like that. And so that was always my why, was this financial freedom, but also freedom in general. Freedom to, like, not have somebody over my head that I need to ask permission from. I always wanted to work on goals that were going to get me closer to, I can work from anywhere. I'm my own boss, and I make money because I'm like, I have money coming from all kinds of different places. And it's very diversified, where I'm not relying on one specific basket or something like that. So that's what it goes back down to, is know why you're doing it. Because if you know why you're doing it, when it gets tough, you're going to remind yourself. Like, I will always remember a quick story. When I was in sales, because I have a little sister who's like 20 years younger than me. And so one time when I was in sales, I called my team leader, and I was so mad at everything. Like, that was definitely a bad day. I was in door-to-door sales, by the way, so not easy. And so I'm calling my team leader. I'm like, today's really sucked, and I don't know what to do. And she was like, well, just ask yourself what you would tell your little sister. And boom, like, for me, that was like, oh yeah, we got to keep going.
Wow.
So if you can have something like that, that's just going to give you back that boost, that's what you need to find out for yourself, for sure.
Yeah, it's what gives you that encouragement, that power, right? That you can feel the passion and the burning inside. I love that you mentioned the why, because it is so important. And there's even the I'm sure you've heard it, like the 7 levels of why, right? And you cover them so beautiful, because we all want financial freedom, but why? And why? And why?
Yeah.
And then you realize that it's really about that self-belief and that just being self-reliable, which I am a huge advocate, especially for women, but for everybody.
Yes.
I mean, we always say, I want to feel loved, safe, and secure. So that is
Yeah.
powerful why. So I share that with you, and thank you for sharing that with us. Okay,
Of
can we
course.
go back a little bit to multifamily?
Yes.
That's something that you're working on right now, correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. So
So
right now we have done 4 deals, one that went full cycle, and we're working on our next one.
that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The full cycle means that it's basically the steps: acquired, managed, and exited, so sold. So tell us
Yes.
a little bit about your experience with that.
Full cycle one, that was our first triplex. So again, that one was multifamily on the residential side. The funny thing with that one, again, going back to pivoting, is that when we bought it, we were not planning on selling probably ever. But then we realized that we really wanted to commit to real estate, and we decided to move to Texas because that's where the opportunities were. And all of a sudden it was like, well, if we move down here, it's going to be very hard to take care of that property from, like, I don't know how many states they are. This one was in Chicago. So I don't know how many states there are between Illinois and Texas, but we just didn't want to have to do that. And so out of nowhere, we kind of had to pivot and change our exit strategy, because instead of living in it for a little bit, renting the other units, and then eventually renting everything, and we were going to redo the attic so that the top units was going to be a duplex and all of that. We had like a lot of plans and goals for this property. And then it was like, well, now we're just trying to sell it. And to me, that showed me the power of having different strategies in place and not limiting yourself to just one, and going with the one that works best for you. Like I was saying earlier with investors, you want to go with a deal that's the right one for your goals and for your vision for your financial future. Don't go with something where it's like, I don't know, like, for example, if you're trying to get out of it eventually, don't go for a property that the operator might want to hold on to for 10, 15, 20 years, because that doesn't go with your plan of getting out in 3, 5, 7 years, right? So that's why you have to, I think that in terms of exit strategies, you have to have multiple ones so that you can pivot. But then the main one, the one that you plan on implementing, you have to make sure that it goes with what you're trying to do. And so for me, that's what this property showed me, is like, it's very important to have multiple options and then pivot along the way based on your goals and your specific situation.
So you went from, property management, and then to house hacking, your multifamily, and that's incredible. And then to larger multifamily that you're doing now. So
yeah,
talk about, for someone who's new, what is the biggest advice you can give them when they're just starting from like single family to now multifamily? Because that's a big leap, and most people think, oh, that's going to be impossible, or oh, it's going to take me too long. And you were talking about like, oh, by when that happens, it's going to be 10 years, but it doesn't have to be that way.
correct. I agree. The advice that I would give is ask yourself how much time you're willing to give it. Because I think a lot of people are wondering, oh, like, how much knowledge should I gather before I go? Or like, how much due diligence should I do, which is very important. How much money should I invest? But also ask yourself how much time. Like, I run into a lot of people who, obviously the idea of passive income is very sexy to all of us, right? We're all like, oh my gosh, I wish I had like 10 different streams of income at all times. But then you also have to realize money can be made again. Like, ideally, you don't want to lose it, but if you lose it, you'll make some more. You're not going to make more time. Like, your time is what you have. And so really ask yourself, how much time do I want to spend in this? Because for me, that was the thing when I was a landlord, is realizing, oh, this is actually taking a lot of my time. And this is taking time that, like, for example, when I was a property manager, sometimes residents would call me at 3 a.m. And it's like, one day I'm going to be a mom. Do I want to be woken up at 3 a.m. to deal with like this? And so it's all those little questions where it's like, you may not realize, hey, this goes beyond just the investment. It's like, what is my vision? What are my financial goals? But then how much how committed do I want to be to this? And so to me, that was the beauty of starting with a passive investment, is that it allowed me to see that side, number one, learn from that, but also realize, oh, I really like this. I want to be active. I have the time to be active.
If someone is interested in getting started with capital raising or passive investing, what is the first step? And we talked so much about it, but if you can narrow it down and like just the very first step that they can take.
It's a network. Start going to networking events, start going to conferences, meet other people, meet different operators, meet different people who are doing what you want to do, like so that you can kind of hold each other accountable. And really learn from that networking. Yes, educate yourself should probably be right alongside that. But if you just educate yourself alone on YouTube University, how do you know that you actually getting the right information, right? Like, you want to be able to compare. You want to do YouTube University, but then also read books and then also meet people. And so for me, the first step is go out, network, and see what everybody else is doing, and then decide for yourself, okay, based on that, where am I? How much, like I was saying, how much time do I want to spend? How much money do I want to invest? Where? All that kind of stuff. I think that networking is also going to probably teach people a lot about themselves once they start doing it.
Absolutely. I love that. Okay, so before we wrap up, what is the biggest lesson about wealth building that you want to pass on to future investors and our audience?
Oh my gosh. Let me think. I think that, to me at least, what the biggest lesson that was like eye-opening is that everybody can start. Like, it doesn't don't stop yourself because you think that you have to go big or go home. Just start with a little bit. Like, it's okay, even if it's not gonna like be life altering or something at first, that's fine. You'll work your way there. But don't think that like you have to be a millionaire to get started, because that's what's stopping you. Start where you are and just work yourself up there.
Wow, that is so incredible. It is that 1% or 2% of being better than yesterday, right? It's those baby
Absolutely
steps that it will hit home and hit a home run eventually. That is really a powerful insight, Linda. It's so incredible because it's really not about the numbers. It's really not about the amount of the immense experience one can have. It really is truly just about mindset, strategy, and taking action. Just those little tiny steps, like I said. So for those who want to dive deeper into your work, because it's been such an eye-opening, whoever wants to stay connected with Linda, where can we find you?
Yes, I'm very active on LinkedIn. Linda Holtz is my name on there. M2RE is the name of my company. So we have pages on Facebook, Instagram that say M2RETX, because we're in Texas. So just M2RE stands for Married to Real Estate, because I founded the company with my husband. So if you go on social media, that's where to find us. And then we have our website, married2realestate.com. And yeah, there's a contact form on there, and just get in touch anytime. My phone number is on there too. And I look forward to talking to anybody who's interested to hear more.
Beautiful. Well, Linda, this has been such an incredible conversation. Thank you for sharing your journey, your insights, your amazing wisdom with us today. I know our listeners will walk away feeling completely inspired and definitely more equipped to take action on their own investment journey. So, to everyone else listening out there, thank you for joining us on this journey to transformation and legacy building. If Linda's story inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with someone that might need a little encouragement to take the next step in their journey. And remember, the power to transform your life and create your legacy is within you. So until next time, keep dreaming, building, and shaping your legacy.